Hey, everybody, and welcome to Common Good Conversations, a podcast creating deeper narratives at the intersection of faith and politics for the common good in West Michigan. My name is Nick Brock, and joining me is Sean Skinner.
Good morning again. How are we doing today?
We're doing good. We got our caffeine Our caffeine has kicked in.
Kicking in.
And
I was just going to ask you. You didn't tell me in the last one what you were drinking, so tell us. I'm excited to know. Tell us.
Yeah, I know. I'm not drinking coffee this morning. I've switched it up. Yeah, I've had a little switch up over the past 2 weeks. I'm trying something a little bit different.
You can't do that. We're sponsored by a coffee company.
Oh, I still drink coffee, but
you got to toe the line.
I know. We're still gonna talk about our sponsor, and there's no moving away from coffee from me, but I'm just trying something a little bit different. So now I'm starting off my mornings with this little orange juice blend. So I got some orange juice, then like a superfoods powder of greens. That's just like all your kind of greens. Then I dumped it all together, put a little like 5-hour energy shot in there, a berry, and mix it all up and drink it into this what it looks now like sludge, but it actually tastes better than it looks, as they always do. So
yeah, sure, they always do.
Yeah, this one, it doesn't taste bad because the superfoods powder has like a berry taste, and using my little caffeine also tastes like berries. So
how was the superfood on its own? Because I looked at that actually like a week ago of getting some super greens or something like that, because I do not eat regular greens altogether in general.
Yeah, they make a couple of different flavors. I tried it with water, like these products, whether they're like protein products or whatever, they never taste good just with water because the solution, it's just like too thin. So that's I always prefer, if it's like a protein, I'm going to put it with milk, or if it's something like this, I'm going to put it with a juice because you get more of a better flavor. So like with this berry super green stuff with water is just not good. I take that back. It's not bad. It's not great. It gets the job done.
It's more of the mouthfeel for you. You need to have something citrusy or something in it.
Yeah, you got to have that
to make it happen.
Yeah, you got to have that be a little bit stronger than the others. But I got into this whole thing, and my birthday was, I don't know, August or so. Turned 40.
It's August right now, right?
Okay, so August 2nd. It feels like ages ago.
You say like it was August you mean this month?
I guess that's what happens when you get older, at least 44. And I thought, what can I do better in my overall kind of eating habits and things like that. So, it's like I need to eat more vegetables. I need to get some more of the good stuff in my body. So Christina was like, oh, you should take a multivitamin, which is fine. But I found this thing. So I thought I'd give that a try.
Nice.
And there we are.
You ever try that coffee I got you for Christmas?
You know what? I got a sad story about that. I think Christina
you spilled
actually
it, you lost it, you threw it out.
Well, here's kind of the sad thing that I didn't try it. I think Christina did. I think she started using it in her AeroPress. So she makes her coffee every day using the AeroPress. I think so. We ran out of what she typically uses. I think she grabbed that, used it all. So then now the container that held all that coffee was cleaned. It was in the sink, all cleaned up, and now it's on the shelf again, just empty. So
it was used. The whole thing was used?
Well, I think so. I think that she used it.
That's not a tragedy. You made it sound like something horrific happened to it. Like it got knocked down in the kitchen. It was everywhere, and all you could smell is maple bacon or something. But no, my wife drank the whole thing.
Well, if she did,
that's a good thing.
Okay, well, so that's, I mean, maybe but we don't know that for 100%.
I got you the gift, and she drank it, and you didn't try it, so it hurts my feelings a little bit. But I'm grown up.
Well, I just didn't want to say that I got thrown out, which just might be the case. I don't know. But hey, thanks for that Christmas gift. That was really thoughtful of you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Not going to happen again this year.
You can try something. Hey, I'll still take coffee, but you know how
Maybe I'll get you the exact same thing. Maybe that from now on, you'll get the exact same thing of coffee until you try it.
Yeah, it'll be this little gag gift that keeps going and going.
Yep. Well, you don't know if it's going to cause you to gag until you try it.
I know. But I say that the strongest bet for me is just a regular single point of origin country coffee. That's where we got to go.
Yeah, but there's no fun in that for me.
Yeah, I know.
If I get you exactly what you want, that's no fun.
I know. Well, thanks for thinking about yourself for my Christmas gift and all other gifts you might send my way.
Oh, I'll get a couple. I still owe you a birthday present, so I'll get that in the mail.
Oh, okay, good. Hey, there's this little thing before we get to our guest. I was just reading this the other day. There was a little essay by an organization here in town, and the whole thing about the essay, which made me think of you, is how like you do cooking and sharing and eating a meal of like barbecue is a way of kind of showing or participating in patriotism. And so I read the whole article. I was like, what? Like how exactly?
I could see that being like the one main food gathering as an American to be, this is a patriotic thing. Sound like you're going to say, hey, let's come over and celebrate America and let's make a pizza.
No, not a pizza. With like some real brisket, ribs type of barbecue. So the reason that this made me think of you, because near the end of the article, so the whole like essay was saying, all right, the origin of barbecue is very American. It's a very traditional American thing that's rooted in kind of I don't know, some very American things. Anyways, though, it said like when people, families and restaurants get together, they're getting together over a tradition, like a family style. Typically these meals are served around a family style meal. So the writer was saying that, and it's called Barbecue and Patriotism by Elizabeth Stice. She said that you can practice patriotism by being a patron at places that serve barbecue, that do more than stand for or against pieces of marble. And she's talking about like when people were upset about getting rid of Confederate statues or this thing or that, places that keep our traditions alive, places that respect our complicated past and our regional differences, places that value hard work and heritage, and portions that can be served family style. And this is where I thought of you, Sean. You can really turn down the television, turn down the temperature, turn up the smoke, and practice the patriotism with the best flavors.
I can stand by that. That's how this podcast kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
Was around food, bourbon, cigars.
Yeah, exactly. It was getting together over that food and drink, and really, talking about either politics or not, but just kind of being with each other and kind of turning some other things out. But the other day you were talking about how you were just really ramped up and about kind of the national political scene and how you were getting just a little disheartened and perhaps cynical. And so when I saw this, is you can turn down the TV, turn out the noise. I'm going to suggest to you that you cook up a brisket and then, man, we'll have that together in the backyard or something. So
maybe that has a good. It's just everywhere. And Anna got us one of those Alexa, Amazon, like tablet screen things in the kitchen that's just plugged in, and the thing. Talk about like evasive. The thing is automatically just rotating through things. It's like having a big screen phone sitting there, just throwing advertisements out. And every once in a while, it just starts going. Mm-hmm. Like the thing I sent you yesterday about Kamala Harris and Michigan voters thinking more about going with Trump or something. It was just. I didn't search it. I was just walking through the kitchen and it came up and I was like, I'll send this to Nick. He'll like this. But I don't need to. It doesn't I keep telling it to shut off. It will only do like one thing. We can close the window for the camera and turn off the microphone, but then it just rotates through things.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can turn the microphone on and tell it to turn the screen off. But then when I touch the thing to turn the microphone on, the screen comes back on. Like it's
yeah, these things, they're going to take over our lives. They're listening in. They're
AI
listening
is going to kill us.
But so
soon we'll be voting for an AI president.
Hopefully not. So that my overall suggestion was for you to cook up some barbecue because we need to do that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to do that before the summer ends. And since the summer is winding down, we want to make a shout out here to Shul.
I've got myself a new coffee place, huh?
Shul Coffee Company for supporting the podcast. Since the summer's winding down, that means time is running out for you and for us to enjoy some fun in the sun. So be sure to fuel up for these final summer adventures with the delicious flavors from Shul Coffee, roasted right here in Grand Rapids for over 40 years. Shul Coffee has multiple summer flavors for you to choose from, like s'mores, campfire cookie, banana split, star-spangled berries, and Neapolitan. All are available in decaffeinated too. Visit Shul Coffee shop online at shulcoffee.com and use code RADIO for 20% off, or come into the store located on 29th Street. Discount only available online. And thank you to Rethink Nutrition for also supporting the podcast. You need to rethink the way you snack. Try a meal replacement bar to restore your energy and sustain you through long runs, long shifts, and short turnarounds. Rethink Nutrition bars are made from only the good stuff sourced locally, like stone ground sprouted oats, natural peanut butter, organic blueberries, pecans, wildflower honey, organic cherries, organic apricots, and pea protein powder. You can try apricot crunch, cherry mint, or blueberry bliss to boost your mind and body naturally. Visit rethinknutrition.org and use code GOOD to get your first order 25% off. Listener, here we go. Today, we have the privilege of being in conversation with Washington Post reporter Patrick Marley. Patrick Marley writes about voting issues in the upper Midwest, and he, along with his colleague, Greg Jaffe, won the 2024 Toner Prize for Excellence in National Political Reporting and were honored for this prestigious award for a series of 4 stories that they covered last year about Ottawa County. Both have made more than a dozen trips to Ottawa County. And we last spoke with Greg Jaffe about their writings in a previous podcast episode, which you can find, and that is entitled, "Why is the Washington Post Covering the Politics of Ottawa County?" And that was published on November 11, 2023. And interestingly enough, yeah, here's something too. That episode remains far and away our most listened to episode of the year. Like, that's just got the most downloads out of all the others. Yep. So listener, I'd really encourage you to give that a listen. But today's episode, we're joined by Patrick Marley, and there'll be a follow-up. This is we're going to talk about a follow-up article to the work that he and Greg did in their most recent article titled, or it talks about, where is it? Talks about the title is "After 2 Years of Far-Right Rule in Ottawa County, where there is change to the divisive Trump-style politics." Yeah, I think that's good enough. I'll just bring Patrick on. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me on. How are you today?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Doing great. Patrick, I asked this question of Greg last time, And I asked him, hey, when you come into town, you've made these numerous trips to Ottawa County, whether it's like Holland or visiting Grand Haven. Where are your favorite places to go for like coffee, getting food, or getting a drink? Were there any places that stood out for you, and you gave like a 5-star review on Yelp?
Well, I live in Wisconsin, so I'm just on the other side of Lake Michigan. I've lived in Wisconsin. I'm from the Midwest originally. I've lived in Wisconsin for more than 20 years. So, there's a little bit of rivalry between Wisconsin and Michigan, and I don't like to admit it, but you've got a nicer lakeshore on Lake Michigan in Holland and Grand Haven than they do on the Milwaukee side. So I think what I enjoy most about getting over to your side of the lake is, we don't get to watch the sunset from our side. So that's probably the nicest thing about West Michigan. But the other thing is, really that, they're very similar states. Every time I go to Michigan, I'm struck by how much it is like Wisconsin.
Wow, no kidding. I haven't spent a lot of time in Wisconsin. Have you, Sean?
No. 3 years ago, drove over there, picked up a snowmobile, came back.
And what
That's about it?
So Wisconsin is known for their cheese, right? Are you a big, cheesehead or anything like that?
Of course, there's a lot of great cheese makers in Wisconsin. We've got all kinds of great stuff. We're also known for our beer, just as Michigan is, and I think we compete pretty well head to head on craft beer.
Do you have a favorite?
That's fighting words.
What's that, Sean?
So those are fighting words right there.
I didn't say
we're gonna have ourselves a drink off.
The last time I was in Michigan, which was when we were wrapping up this last story, I on my drive home, I stopped at Transient, which has got some really great beers. I like that place a lot.
It's been a while since I've had their beer. They do have really good beer.
Transient. I don't recall that one. Where's that one?
They're down by South Bend or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fairly near there. It's on the Michigan side, obviously, but I hate to say I forget the name of the town it's in.
Yeah, it's somewhere. Well, a good thing for Google or Sean, you can speak it into your AI machine and it'll pull it up for you.
Yeah.
So, Greg, the Washington Post has been writing a series of stories under the theme "Democracy in America," and that's where these stories about Ottawa, the politics of Ottawa County, can be found. Can you explain what this series is all about?
Sure. So I'm part of what we call a democracy team, along with Greg Jaffe, and we've got, several other people. Some of them based in Washington, like Greg. Some of them based in various places around the country. Like I mentioned, I'm in Wisconsin. We've got somebody in Phoenix and somebody in Atlanta. And what we're really doing is sort of taking the temperature of democracy, talking about efforts to change voting laws, efforts to make the country less democratic or to overturn election results. And most of what we focus on is national politics, but we saw early on that Ottawa County was sort of having a moment after its 2022 elections and this dramatic change in the makeup of the commission. So we started spending some time there just to see, what happens when a community is really intensely divided politically and has such normally county government is something that's sort of behind the scenes and doesn't draw a lot of attention, and it sort of quietly goes about its business, and it may have, its tax levy might get controversial at one point, or it may make a decision here or there that becomes controversial, but it really, you're from there. It really exploded with the COVID policies they have, and there was this big response to that. And then when the new group, the Ottawa Impact, took power, there was a big pushback against that. And it felt like a broader story could be told about what was happening in this one community. So we started going there and returning and trying to tell people about this place and what it was going through.
Yeah. Before we get a little more in depth with that, I wonder, in this theme, with the post that you're involved in, democracy in America, was there something for you as a reporter and maybe personally that like most compelled you to engage in this series? And maybe like if the post presented it to you, or vice versa, you're like, yeah, that really that's something that I can really get behind, or works with me. Is there any like kind of personal thing for you behind that?
Well, I mean, this all kind of developed organically. The way this happened is Greg initially was writing a story about the clerk, Justin Roebuck, and his efforts to convince the public and show the public that the elections were run fairly in Ottawa County. And, despite a great deal of skepticism about election systems on the right, that he was, going to talk to people who believe sometimes some pretty outlandish things and sort of meet them at their level and tell them about what was going on. And there was a meeting that Justin was going to hold, I believe at a library, where he could talk about this stuff. And then it turned out that same night the Ottawa County Patriots were meeting. And this was right in the period of the 2022 primary. So just as Ottawa Impact was winning the primaries that would put them into power, but not yet having had the general election and coming into power. And since those two meetings were happening at the same time, and since Greg is an amazing reporter, but not yet able to be in two places at once, he asked if I could come help him. And that's how I got pulled in at this early stage. And I went to the Ottawa Patriots event, and he went to spend some time with Justin as he was at his event. We wrote a story about that. So, at that time, I don't know that we had really concluded that we would keep coming back to Ottawa County. It was sort of a contained story. It told this, I think it really illustrated something that's happening in lots of places with election officials as they try to show the public, what they're doing and be as transparent as possible, and still are met with some, disbelief by some corners of society. So I'm not sure that we saw that as more than that. But after spending just this, a week here or whatever we were for that story, we thought we want to keep our eyes on this place and see what happens. And then, of course, when that first meeting happened, as you know, it was like pretty dramatic flex of change that happened where they, fired the administrator, fired the longtime attorney, changed the slogan, and you could tell that there was going to be a lot of change and a lot of conflict. And so then that's when we started saying, let's come back here and see what all is unfolding here.
Yeah, I maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but when you look back over these stories and over the previous 18 months, I wonder, I know that our listener base is really kind of queued up on what's going on, but if there was, with you and your whole team, like traveling, the country, other different reporters and reporting on what's going on with, like, say, voting laws or election results. If you were to give this kind of a number on a scale, like maybe a number one being really low in terms of your democracy in America, and number 5 or number 10 being like kind of off the charts, hashtag OMG, hashtag, WTF question mark. Where would you kind of place this story for listeners?
I mean, the thing is, we wouldn't, we wouldn't be writing about it if it were something low on the scale, right? Because we want to write stories that speak to an audience beyond West Michigan, right? We want to be able to write stories in a way that if you live in California or you live in Florida or you live in Illinois, that you see some resonance with what's happening there, right? Whatever policies Ottawa County make isn't going to affect those other states. But is there something that's going on there that speaks to other parts of the country? And I think there clearly is, because we got this really great reader response where you heard of a lot of people engaged that, it seemed at times like you have this like congressional level of conflict and an absolute inability to believe that the other side was ever acting in good faith, that had just filtered all the way down to the most local level of government. And, Congress can be dysfunctional. We've seen that, but at a certain level, local government has to work, right? Like they have to pass a budget. They have to do the things of county government. And it's harder, or it's way more visceral and personal when the political conflict is happening involving people that you see at church and that you see at the grocery store and that you see on, just the street as you're walking down, that versus it being national figures who you don't have connections with in your daily life. So, whatever the number would be, I would put it high on the scale because we thought there was some salience of what was going on in Ottawa County that spoke to the rest of the country.
Yeah, Sean, do you have any questions, comments before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the article?
Well, what were well, this might be in the meat and potatoes of the article, but what were the main concerns on what people thought were being changed in the voting or whatnot, or the laws that you guys were, that are looking to be changed and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as it turns out that in Ottawa County itself, I would not say that as all the fights that you've had, they really haven't touched that much on the voting laws themselves. Like obviously, you've had a lot of states that have been changing election laws since the 2020 election. Really, every state changed its election laws because of COVID, and then after that, if not every state, nearly every state has made some kind of change to them, either to permanently put in place the new rules they had from COVID or to tighten them even beyond what they had been prior to COVID. So you've seen, and there's been many, many lawsuits over election laws. So there's lots happening with voting rules and voting laws, and it's playing out state by state. I guess in Ottawa County, you're not seeing that so much. There has been some discussion about the way Justin Roebuck does his job, or a little bit of that. But I would say that has been a sidelight to some of the other issues, which have really centered on, LGBT issues and the health department and DEI. Those have seemed to take center stage.
What does LGBTQ issues have to do with votes?
Oh, it does not. I guess what I was trying to say was that you were asking specifically about voting policy changes, which is something.
Policy changes and what everybody's concern was on voter fraud and stuff like that.
Yes, and what I'm saying is, like, at a policy level, that the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners has had a lot of policy fights and disputes over the last 2 years. They have centered more on the LGBTQ plus things and DEI rather than voting policies, which
gotcha.
I guess at the beginning of all of this, I'd wondered if, like, what kind of voting machines you have and what kind of rules you have would, come to the fore. It really hasn't.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just a little follow up with there, Sean, too, is like the big snafu, as Patrick mentioned, it was just kind of the integrity of the whole election process. So, when we spoke with in a podcast episode with Kent County Clerk Lisa Lyons, it was essentially, all of like a ton of voters having those same concerns about the voting machines, about the ballots, about, the mail-in process. And so Justin, in the article that you Patrick and Greg wrote about, covers that, and how Justin is trying to, be, speak with civility and be humorous and just really be accessible to those voters, so they understand, like, oh, hey, when you put in your ballot, this is how it's tabulated, and no, it doesn't go off to the internet or to China and things like that. So, because that too, it was a piece of Ottawa Impact as they campaign, and it's they're not pushing it hard, and they've moved on to other things like LGBT plus, etc. So. there's that little piece. But Patrick, to the article, I want to talk about the article and the way that it's set up. So you open it up with candidate Jim Barry, a Republican. It moves to Rachel Atwood, the Ottawa Impact candidate, and moves back to a different Republican candidate with Mark Northrup, and then it talks about a new era in Ottawa County. So I'll just briefly read an excerpt here. Jim Barry described himself as a moderate in the mold of former president and Michigan Republican Gerald Ford, and was running for a seat on the 11-member county board and hoping that voters in Ottawa might be ready to embrace a different kind of politics. And he said of this as, "I'm not sure Ronald Reagan could pass some of the conservative purity tests in the modern era." So I want to start here with this, Patrick, and say, what can you tell us about Jim Barry and what he represents?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how Jim described himself, right? A Gerald Ford Republican. He's, of course, the brother of your Congressman Huizenga, and he says he's a conservative Republican, but he feels that things have gone a little off the rails with Ottawa Impact, and he wanted to restore it to a little more efficient and a place where you had civility and ability to work with the other side, meaning, now it looks like you're going to have this sort of mix of Democrats, Ottawa Impact members, and Republicans who are not Ottawa Impact members. And I don't think any one of those groups will have a majority. It would presumably the Democrats and the non-Ottawa Impact non-Ottawa Impact members would have sort of a governing coalition, if you would. But Jim Barry has really talked about the importance of talking to all sides and building consensus. And he says that he would work with the Ottawa Impact members, Joe Moss and others who are still there, to try to find common ground and try to move county government a little more back into that under the radar level where people are not talking about it and thinking about it as much as they are over the last 2 years.
Was that, and speaking with Jim, is that what you found? I don't know how many other non-Ottawa Impact candidates you spoke with, but is that something like you heard a lot from them, or perhaps the voters or people who were supporting their campaign is like, hey, we want to return to this, Gerald R. Ford or Reagan-esque type of politics?
It's interesting because Ottawa Impact, when it first showed up and when it ran this time, runs as a slate. It's almost like a party, right? Like they have very specific positions. They had their contract the first time they ran that they had people sign about what they would do. They had a clear agenda that they focused on. These candidates that challenged Ottawa Impact in the Republican primaries, there are some common positions they have because they are, feel that Ottawa Impact should not have control of the board. But they're not, I don't think you could call them a slate. There's a lot of difference among them. Some of them are pro-Trump. Some of them are anti-Trump. So, some of them may be more conservative or less conservative than Jim Barry. There's a little more diversity in their ranks, but they do have this seeming common view of like needing to stop Ottawa Impact and yet also have more dialogue and search for compromise. I'd say that's what seems to thread them together.
Mm-hmm. Sean, any question before we move on to the next piece here with talking about Ottawa Impact candidate?
No, you go ahead.
All right, so let's talk about Rachel Atwood. So the section in the article read like this is, so, it starts with Jim Barry and then what I just read and what we talked about. And then it goes 25 miles to the east on the opposite side of the county. Rachel Atwood corralled voters outside her polling place. She was part of the slate of hardline Republicans trying to keep control of the board. Her group, Ottawa Impact, dominated the county GOP. So what can you tell us about Rachel Atwood, and perhaps like why did the article focus on her as opposed to some of the other candidates, and what she represents?
So it's a little complicated to write this story in that, like, you had many races happening at once. All of the there are all these primaries, and so we could have focused on Jim Barry, and his opponent was incumbent Gretchen Cosby, but it felt like there was one, we wanted to spend some real time with as many candidates as we could. We didn't know who was going to win. We didn't know who was going to lose when we were reporting this. So we spent time with several candidates throughout this, and Rachel Atwood really is a good representation of some of what Ottawa Impact is all about. And, I think she's also quoted in there as talking about the importance of culture wars to her, that those are the kinds of things that she wants to put a focus on. And there was like such an important contrast to show, because that is, Jim Barry is not the person who was running directly against her, but it's sort of Ottawa Impact versus the non-Ottawa Impact candidates. And that's diametrically opposed to where he stands, because he was, he just didn't want the county to get involved in fights that it doesn't really have a role in. So, for instance, with COVID restrictions, which is really what led to the rise of Ottawa Impact, the pushback against the COVID restrictions, Jim Barry's position was just that the county has less of a role in that, and that's more of a state issue, and that although he thought the prior board could have handled all of this differently and pushed the state more to change some of its rules, that at the end of the day, the health director can't do some of the things that Ottawa Impact wants it to do. And the county board doesn't have the policy, the ability to easily change who the health director is. And it got into a big fight over that, and it didn't change the health director. And so, he wants to steer away from that stuff. Rachel Atwood seems to want to run right into them. She talks about the culture wars, the importance of like having these types of fights. So just two really different views on what the role of county commissioner should be.
Yeah, she was, I was a little surprised that, they were, Rachel did speak to you or, to the Washington Post, to Ottawa Impact as, and not spoken with local media, particularly the Holland Sentinel. Was it difficult to try to reach out to them, or were they like ready to go on the jump? And I know that they did a lot more speaking with the media, leading into the primary, but that was probably the exception to the rule. How was it reaching out to her?
So Greg Jaffe talked to her. I was spending time with Jim Barry. So obviously, she's quoted in the story. He had success with her. He was able to engage with her, and which we really appreciated. She live streams a lot of things. She puts a lot of what her message out there online. So that's also helpful, because what we always want is we want to capture every perspective we can and put that into a story. And then readers can figure out who they agree with, what they think about how people are doing it. But in order to do that, we have to have windows into the way they're seeing things and the way they're talking about it. And so when they don't engage with us, it's a lot harder to do. So Jim Barry was very open to spending time together, and we had a lot of time to talk, and I could really explore his thoughts. Greg was able to talk to Rachel, and like I said, you mentioned that, or I mentioned that, she does these online videos and things, so you can get her thoughts that way as well. Other members of Ottawa Impact are not very open. They're very distrustful of the mainstream media, and they don't want to talk to us, and which is their prerogative, but it makes our job harder for figuring out what they want to do. Joe Moss has had really minimal contact with us, hasn't wanted to engage, and we would have loved to have talked to him some more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so then let's move on to Mark Northrup, the mayor of Hudsonville, and he was challenging Ottawa Impact president and founder Joe Moss, the chairman of the board currently. With this, though, I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you heard from Mark. But then, what he had a little kind of nuance or twist in his campaign is that he had, a Democrat or somebody who leans more progressive in helping his campaigning. This is mentioned in the article that some Democrats, were involved as well. So, I'd love for you to talk about, what you learned from Mark, and then also about how Democrats were involved in this overall process.
Yeah. So Mark is also someone who Greg spent some time with, and he's, this very, very pro-Trump Republican, and that he didn't like the way Ottawa Impact was doing things, but he was his campaign manager, campaign strategist as someone who had a, bands off our bodies sticker on her laptop, very different view, but they saw a common cause in trying to stop Ottawa Impact. And I think that's one thing you've seen, obviously Ottawa County is a very Republican county. And so I think Democrats were particularly rattled in the county because they didn't like the direction it was going. And it's not like they can beat Ottawa Impact in the general election. So the only way to stop them was in primaries. And so Democrats had to figure out, do they just let Republicans sort out whatever they're going to put forward as general election candidates? Or are they going to try to work with Republicans in the primaries? Is there a way to make that happen? And Mark Northrup's campaign is an example of where you saw the two being able to work together. It's like creates challenges for the Republicans who are running in those races because they're going to be described as rhinos, Republicans in name only. And if they are actually working with Democrats, it opens them to greater exposure of that. Now, I don't think Mark Northrup was terribly worried about being called a rhino, given his policy views. And I think that term gets used so much now that maybe it doesn't sting as much as it used to some Republicans, because it's like, almost used now sometimes if it's just like you can disagree on one thing and someone will label you as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so overused now.
It's normalized. It's normalized. Yeah, there you go. So now it's less insulting. See what happens when you overuse things? You can't use it anymore.
Yeah, and it means that, anybody who disagrees on one thing, any small thing, whether it's with Ottawa Impact for the Ottawa County GOP or national politics, you can be called a rhino. So the definition for that, or the efficacy for that term, is just fading away. But it still works to for the people, the hardcore base, and that's why they're still throwing it around. Ottawa Impact, they even started using in their late campaign material, talking about the quote unquote the leftist elite, or what was it, the elitist lakeshore progressives. Which is, that is not a term, the elitist lakeshore progressives, but it's a national term, that the Republicans like to talk about when they're talking about Democrats. So it's just, it's just this word gaming and try to figure out the real words behind it in the context.
That's the type of stuff that gets me fed up, like you had mentioned at the beginning of this episode. Is I was losing my my crap the other day. Just there's the time spent on coming up with all these little nuanced words and phrasings just seems so redundant. If we're trying to think of the greater good, what's the things we could do? Let's insult this party with a different phrase. That's a good idea. That will help us move along.
Yeah, I first read about it in an email, so I received their emails. And when I read that, the elitist progressive lakeshore, I was just like, number one, that's super boring. Like, you're just recycling things. And I was just super lame. And then it was just funny because, it's hardly true. All right. So the last piece, Patrick, in your article is titled or the subtitle was "A New Era And a quote from that from Josh Bruger, a non-OI candidate who won his primary, says, so the context was this, where the clerk, Justin Roebuck, had invited all the Republicans to get together after this and have kind of it seemed almost like a kumbaya meeting. And Josh Bruger said, quote, when radicalism reared up, we all united to put it back down. But he said this only a few feet away from Joe Moss, which to me, when I read that in the article, I was like, wow, that's super awkward. So, this is essentially, Republicans are trying to, turn the party back to some kind of normalcy, turn it back to a Ford-esque, Reagan-esque. I guess the question here is, how palpable was some of that awkwardness between the Republicans, or what was your sense kind of being in the room, or whether it was you or Greg in the room?
So, it's pretty common for parties after primaries to have these sort of unity type events where they can, rally everybody because you have a divisive primary. You want to get all of your side together so they can beat the other party in the general election. So that Justin Roebuck was holding that at New Holland, another great Michigan brewery. And he got a good turnout there. And there was this effort to unify the Republicans so that they can win. And obviously they're going to win, most of the commission seats, right? It's a very Republican county. The question is, like, can they get the kinds of numbers they need to help Mike Rogers win, to help Trump win the state, right? Like that's really the need for the unity, is to get everybody out so that they can vote Republican in November and help the statewide and the national elections. But you don't have unity in your party in Michigan, in Ottawa County right now, because you have, this split commission of some are going to be Ottawa Impact, some are going to be non-Ottawa Impact. The question is, how can they all work together? And the fact that Joe Moss showed up at this event is a sign that perhaps there is a way forward, but other Ottawa Impact candidates did not come to that event. You do have Bruger out there calling them, saying this is a form of radicalism. So, we'll have to see how it all settles out after January, when this new commission takes power and no one faction has outright control.
Sean, are you getting that?
Yeah, I got that too. Are you still there, Patrick? We were getting a lot of crazy breaking up. Yeah. Oh, and that's
All right. He'll be.
That was pretty epic.
Yes, it was. I don't know. All right, he's back in. Let's see if we can get another connection here. Man, he was going real well until he didn't, and then it was a crash and burn.
I'm telling you, it's that AI. He's breaking in on us right there.
Does that help at all?
I know he's making a couple of attempts and we'll give it some time here. But I think what he was getting to is, having all these Republicans in the room, which he said is very common, after a primary, to try to bring your party together. So one of the things that I have and wonder about, Ottawa Impact and Joe Moss, even though he says, I think he gave his answer already, is like, how will he moderate his stance? Will he at all? And according to him, and on the Ottawa Impact website or social media, he's like, no, he won't moderate his stance. He is, and this is my term, he is a zealot for his cause, and that's that. So,
zealot,
yeah, zealot. Like he is he is 100% pure to his ideological, political ways, and so be it. And if he chooses to do that, which he has, like his cause, his group will no longer remain in power, and he might find himself out of power. He might speak to a handful of voters, a base of his voters, and that'll work. But, that's not what the majority of Ottawa counter voters want. So they found themselves on the short end of that stick. So, okay, Ottawa Impact, do what you want with that. But, at the end of the day, you're going to get elected by people. So if you're not going to moderate your stance or compromise or, things of that nature, you can
by people. That's so like 2010.
Say that again.
I said, if you're going to be elected by people, that's so 2010.
By people? Wow, how's that 2010?
I'm just kidding, because AI is going to do it. AI is going to do everything nowadays.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
AI can, AI can run up your campaign.
They got
speech.
AI beauty pageants. You know that? I found that the other day on CNN.
AI beauty pageants?
Yeah. There's some AI female that was created has won an AI beauty pageant or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe that.
Things are real.
Have you seen those AI commercials with Matthew McConaughey, and he's like,
with the robotic squirrel?
The what?
With the robotic squirrel?
No, he's like, it's a real Western scene, and he's on this, he's all dressed in Western garb, and he's on like an old timey train. And he's like kind of the sheriff, and then some bad guys come on the train. And he's like, the whole tagline for whatever the company was is like AI, the new,
something or other.
Yeah. It was just a weird commercial, but, either it was like protecting your data, your personal data in this kind of new age of AI, and how it, can be used or not used. Christina, even the other day, she said for the first time she used Chat GPT for what did she use that for? I think maybe it was a meal or some type of workout plan, or gosh, this would be a better story if I could remember the details. But she just surprised me by saying, "Oh, hey, I used it."
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I haven't used it, but I've been over to my buddy's house, and he's got it on his computer. So we were coming up with like, hey, write a country song, and you just see the thing go. It's like, then the lyrics aren't bad. It's just
yeah, for sure.
Humanity out of it.
Yeah, all right, I think. Greg or Patrick, it
looks like he's still trying, because he keeps kind of poking up here and there.
Yeah, he
he's haunting us.
He was at a friend's house, and he was recording from there. His friend's house, the internet really took a dump on him. Well, listener, that's Washington Post reporter Patrick Marley. Patrick Marley writes about voting issues in the upper Midwest. Listener, what did you think of our conversation with Patrick? Was this helpful for you? Who would you like to have us on the program next time? Be sure to leave your comments on our Facebook page under this podcast episode. And be sure to stay informed in 2024. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at votecommongood-wm.org, where you'll receive podcast updates and event updates. And always be sure to follow us on our socials at Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Sean, any comments, any final words before we shut this one down?
Nope. My kids in the background are rolling through my office. They think are giving the last words.
People, little ones are ready to go. All right. Thank you, listener, for joining this Common Good conversation. Till next time, be the common good in West Michigan.